Welcome back to another episode of the Partnernomics Show. We just wrapped up a recording with Brendan King. So Brendan is a co-founder and CEO of Vendasta, and a good-sized company, 650 employees, and doing some really cool stuff in AI. And Brendan has a really cool background that he's been in, just total technology junkie. Always enjoy each time I have an opportunity to chat with him. But I ask him a lot of questions about his career, his time served as a COO. What was that like? Now, since 2008, being the CEO of Vendasta, and maybe what's some lessons learned if he had a crystal ball going back. What's some things that he would change? But then I think one of the most interesting things that we ended with was talking about AI and how they're really leaning into AI heavily and leveraging that, kind of talking about his strategy and using that to help fuel their growth. So hope you enjoy it. Here we go.
Welcome to the Partnernomics Show, where industry thought leaders discuss the hottest topics in partnerships, ecosystems, and innovation.
Welcome back to another episode of the Partnernomics Show. Great to be with you. So today we are joined by Brendan King. So Brendan is the co-founder and CEO of Vendasta, really cool software company that we're going to be digging into and learning about that. But Brendan has an awesome story, a really cool legacy, what he's done throughout his career and certainly within Vendasta. So Brendan, I really appreciate you spending some time with us, taking time out of your busy schedule.
Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's great.
So, Brendan, I'd love to just kind of start off with let folks know a little bit about Brendan. I mean, what did you do before Vendasta? Wait, why get into business? Why didn't you become a teacher, a dentist, or something like that?
Well, I'm from a small town a couple hours south of Saskatoon. So we're in Saskatoon, and right in the middle of Canada, like north of Denver, 14-hour drive. But I'm from a town about 2 hours south called Moose Jaw, which was a pretty big city in the 1800s. It was the biggest city west of Chicago. You know, El Capone, the railway line ends there. El Capone's there's tunnels and things, and you can El Capone used to go there to hide out. Anyway, when I graduated high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I liked physics, so I came to Saskatoon and I got a degree in physics. And I was like, "What the heck are you gonna do with a physics degree?" So I got a geophysics degree, and I was working 3 months in and 3 months out at a uranium mine. And on my 3 months out, I ended up meeting an engineering friend of mine, and we decided that it was 1989. So now you know how old I am. And we decided to assemble PCs. And so at the time there was only Compaq and IBM, and we were building PCs and selling them. And so I learned a lot there. Could talk about that the whole show. Um, but what I learned the most is that the best way to sell is to teach. We were selling a $2,000 to $3,000 PC, where people were saying, "Why is it not $6,000?" We'd teach them about what it was, and that things got to work out of the box. And they get home with a flashing C prompt. They want to bring it back, so we loaded it up with shareware, and we were quite successful. Turned it
What's a
into
C prompt? I'm not that old,
Ah,
Brendan.
man, okay, well, and for those of you know, you know. But if that's when you started up a computer in the old days, there was a flashing C there.
I'm
And then
remembering like this NCD Norton Chain Directory or something like
yeah,
that. Kind of giving
yeah,
it prompts of it was
yeah,
before
yeah.
Windows, right? Well before Windows.
Before Windows, so people would bring it back and say it's broken. So we made it so a menu popped up and you could run shareware my recipes menus. So we did pretty well and turned that into a chain. Ended up about 1999. I was like, I got to get into software. Watching companies like Amazon and Jeff Bezos and those folks. And so I was going to start my own, but I thought, well, I better go work somewhere. So I went to work. So I sold my part of the business to my co-founder, and and then went to a small software company called Point Two. And the tech ecosystem in 1999 was really starting to burgeon. For those of there was a crash in 2000 called the dot-com crash. But so I got in to that business just before then in software, and it was in the heavy equipment space. And we ended up getting bought in early 2000, or part bought by a company called bid.com out of Toronto. Canada's eBay, $1 billion market cap. And they just wanted to auction off this heavy equipment online at a loss. And they were happy because it was good for the enterprise value. But that summer, there was a crash in 2000. So in 6 weeks in July, they went out of business. And so we were buying our shares back by doing consulting work for, Caterpillar, basically. And At that time, I hadn't gone there for that, and so I took the software with another friend of mine, actually a guy who helped started to co-found Vendasta, and we used the software to make it so that a real estate agent could have a website and put a house up on their own and take a house down, and so that's what we became, so that you could have a website, you could control and syndicate the listings to Trulia and Zillow, and we called it ASP at the time. That's how it was delivered. It's now called SaaS. And we didn't have any salespeople. We had 150,000 people using this platform and 6,000 paying, and that's called PLG now, or product led growth. uh, and we sold that to Yardi, and then ended up starting Vendasta. And so I've kind of been in the software space a long time. Yeah.
And so, Brendan, let's dive into Vendasta and kind of give people an overview of what the solution is. I think you guys are up to 650
Yeah.
employees now. Man, you guys have had one heck of a run since I believe 2008 when you guys jumped in and started that company. Give us kind of the 411, 60, 90 seconds of what Vendasta is.
Okay, so we think of ourselves as a acquisition and engagement platform. So maybe I'll just even step back. So the problem we're solving is that, the reason our core purpose, the reason people come to work every day is to democratize technology for local businesses. And all that means is we're making technology easy, accessible, and affordable for a local business. And you know, given that I had the computer store and all the things all the way along, I really have an affinity for local business, and most people here do, and we really want to help them. And the problem they have is with technology, it's hard to use. Like for a small business, they're time starved. They don't have the expertise. They're super overwhelmed with their own business. They got all these logins. They don't even know where to start. So when it comes to technology, about 72% of all spend that a small business makes actually flows through a channel partner. So we actually started by selling through people that service small businesses. So newspapers, radio stations, the yellow page companies at the start, and then agencies like a website agency, an SEO agency. And so that's where we provide them with a platform to resell products and services to local businesses. And the products and services that we resell are all the things that a business needs to run. Everything you need to market, sell, bill, fulfill, deliver, and support those customers. So we think of ourselves as an acquisition and engagement platform. And along the way, we've raised a bunch of money, and we've bought a couple companies, and we do have a direct business. So actually, it's funny, 72% of our revenue, exactly matching that number, comes from channel, and 28% comes from direct out of our Broadly brand that's headquartered in Boca. And so that's sort of the 411 of Vendasta. We think of ourselves as a software company. We're about, I don't know, 220 people in software and in R&D, and but we're a sales company too.
Yeah, when you're talking about partnerships, you're definitely speaking my language. Let's go ahead and just kind of hit that for a second. What was kind of the thoughts behind the strategy? What was your experience before Vendasta that made you, think about partnering as a strategy? I mean,
Oh
we spend a lot of our time evangelizing. I'm like, literally, I have conversations with CEOs all day long, and some of them are just like, I don't exactly get it. I don't like really understand. I'm like,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, it's a hard, it's a, because you don't control, in some ways, you don't control your own destiny when you have partners. But, like, so we sell to and through those partners. So they're our customers, but they make money when they use our platform. So we're not a cost center for them. We're now a profit center for them. But when I think about it, how it happened, if you want to go back to the start, when we sold to realtors, it was like herding cats. Sorry to my realtor friends. But it is. And the cost of
They'd probably admit that.
the cost of acquisition of a small of a small business direct is pretty high, and the lifetime value is a little bit low on those businesses. So um, when we first left to start Vendasta, we actually had a different idea. We were going to be a home services platform, so you could share your home on Facebook and MySpace with your friends and family to get ideas and inspiration. But more importantly, you'd be able to find a contractor, painter, plumber, landscaper that your friends had used and trusted, realtor. And over there, we had a free tool that would let them get listed online. It was 2008, so the iPhone had just come out, and so you could get listed online, manage your reviews, and publish on social. And that free tool took off, and it was making us broke. So in 2009, we're like, we got to pivot. We need to sell to those small businesses. And we're like, oh, not again. How are we going to do that? We're going to find somebody who's got a sales force and a large number of small businesses. And at the time, it was yellow pages and newspapers. Yellow Pages had like, I don't know, yeah, newspapers had 65 billion in revenue in 2008. Today they have 15. Yellow Pages is, gone or changed. And I think they even had more revenue. What we did, was we got lucky. So we started to sell to some of these companies. Hearst Local Edge in Buffalo was our first customer, and then we had Zip Local as a tertiary Yellow Page company out of Utah. We had all these companies reselling our products, and we said, you know, we got lucky because the newspaper said we need to get into digital. And I got a meeting at the Hearst Tower in downtown New York, where you go in there. It's super intimidating. There's a waterfall in the lobby. Go to the top, and there was 15 or 16 of the newspapers there. So Lee, Gannett, McClatchy, Hearst, Tribune, you name it, they were there, and Morris Digital, and all of them. And I had half an hour. They're gonna have 15 or 16 people through that day. Everyone got half an hour, and my pitch was real simple. It was like, you know, you guys are selling advertising, these newspapers, to local businesses so they know about you. And everyone's going online, so the best place to hide a dead body is second page of Google search results. We got these listings to be found, and once you're found, you're literally one click away from the next guy. Nobody wants a one-star plumber. And then after that, you got to build a fan base with social, so sell this is yours. And so that's what happened. We started as a point solution, selling to these big enterprise companies who would resell it as theirs, and that's how we partnered. And that's the evolution of how we are partner centric. And we then started to realize that these partners have a lot of they're thought of as experts by the small business, and the small business just wants to deal with someone they know and trust in their community, who they can work with. And we'd rather partner with those folks. So we bring the platform and the data acquisition and the jobs to be done to and what our partner brings is a set of SMBs and the customer relationships and knowledge about the industry. A lot of them know about, I don't know about roofing in Buffalo versus roofing in Texas, and so they can do that. They bring
Yeah,
us.
brilliant. Brendan, one of the things that I love that reading through your LinkedIn profile you have is CEOs need to bring optimism and energy. Unpack that a little bit for us, man. I love that.
Well, I mean, I'm a wrestler, so I wrestled through high school and university, and we used to have a saying that being challenged in life, being challenged is unavoidable, being defeated is optional. And I find that a lot of people, it's easy to give up, and probably the toughest enemy you're going to ever have out there is doubt. And so it's you got to bring that every day. You got to bring it, your whole team. You got to be there, and you got to be the one to bring that forward. So it's not like blind optimism where you don't do anything. It's got to be, you have to have a good I have mental models for everything. So like I have a good way, I try to find a good way to think about everything, understand it, and then frame it so that you can win. And if you don't bring that optimism and energy, nobody else will. And you have to bring that together and drive the team forward. And then it becomes fun, and it's a way for everyone to sort of participate. And I really think it's about leading through any of that.
It's been said a lot of different times that companies tend to take on just like the culture and the persona of the leaders,
Yeah.
in particular CEO. And I've certainly found that to be true in my years of doing consulting. As soon as I can have a conversation with the CEO for 10 or 15 minutes, I have a pretty good idea of what it's going to be like working with that organization. And I love the optimism. I love, just the energy that comes in. And I think everybody feeds off of that. So I have full
Yeah.
appreciation of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I think that's true. It's really, really important. Uh, I think every day is like what you make it to. And so like even if you're not, everyone gets beat down. You get by the end of the day, sometimes you're beat down, but I always wake up with a plan. And I think that's the important part. Is it's not just blind optimism. You have to have a plan, and then getting some, when I say discipline, like I'm not, people say like I'm maybe not the most disciplined person in some ways, but in other ways I am. And I think discipline's freedom. If you got the way that you do things, you have a routine, you got a way to think about things, that discipline actually frees you up to be able to do a lot.
Yeah. Brendan, a question I want to throw at you and kind of pick your brain a little bit. And that is, I mean, you've served as a COO of an organization, and then now obviously serving as the CEO of Vendasta. What's the difference? Or like whenever you, I guess let's say that you're chatting with a COO that's been out there 5, 6, 7 years in their role, and they're wanting to advance into a CEO role. What's the difference? What was kind of your lessons learned? What's maybe some adjustments that you had to make to go into that bigger, more strategic role?
That's a really interesting question. And I would just to frame it up, I would just say this for sure, that it depend like, when I was the COO at point two, I was really actually that was a different business. They were consulting business. And so that was just a way to say, here, go run this business. And that's what we turned into. So in some ways, I think of myself as being the CEO in those shoes. But from my perspective, what a COO does is run the business and make sure that the trains are and our clocks are running on time. And but they do more than that. It's a really tough job, but it's like about running the business. Where with the CEO, you have to find time to step aside and think about the big picture. And you really got to understand, what your opportunity is, who your competitors are, what strategic strategies you're going to follow. You can't do everything, so you got to make bets. You got to look at your picture and you say, how many bets are we going to make? Where are we going to make those bets, and why are we going to make them? And how's that going to take us to where we want to get to? And so, whereas as CEO, you don't necessarily have to think about all of those things. You're thinking about how can I make this business incrementally better, and I think that's the big difference.
That's a great segue into. I love asking this question. If so you guys, obviously been at this for a while. Been at this since '08. So tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of decisions you've made since then.
Yeah.
Kind of looking back at your evolution, if you had the crystal ball, what's one decision that you would have made different if you could roll back the clock and either make that investment, not make the investment, build that new product, build that new feature?
Yeah, it's easy in hindsight. It's a hindsight bias. It's easy to go back.
Always.
Okay, so, but I'll take it. I find a time machine and I could go do a few things again. Let me let you know that there's a whole bunch. So there's so many. Like I made lots of mistakes in my life, and so not when you make a mistake, it's okay. It's another way that you didn't figure out how to win. So as long as you frame it that way, but you know, I've been through all these different sort of industries. Like when I started the computer store, which called Delron slash CompuSmart, that thing, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just a young, ambitious guy, just head banging along. And then the same thing when I went to, I didn't realize the computer and internet revolution. The computer revolution, then sort of the internet revolution, and then we started Vendasta. You got the mobile revolution, and now you have this AI revolution. And I think I can take advantage of the AI when we're doing everything there. But I missed a couple along the way. So I missed what we could have been with the computer store. We could have been like a Dell. Dell was just like, but we didn't think like that. And I wasn't. I was just running the business. And so the same thing probably at point two. We were signing realtors up, but everybody wanted a website, and I think we could have been, like a Wix if we would have opened it up, and we actually stopped those guys. And so I look at that, and then at Vendasta, if I talk about lately, you go through, there's also different sort of economic things that are happening in the world. And so, for a while, it was like, you got to grow profitably. When we didn't have any money, when we started, we had to grow and make money, and we raised some money. You don't raise money to keep it in the bank. You spend it and you grow. We had a really nice growth rate all the way through to, all to COVID times. And we raised a bunch of money at COVID. And we bought some companies, and I don't think I would change those, but we actually tried. It was growth at all costs, and I think we spent money inefficiently. And if I could go back and do it again, I wouldn't do that. I would, we tried to scale our sales engine faster than what the inbound demand was, and I would instead probably have spent that money probably more. I would probably even go faster on software development. So I probably would have pushed it back. Like right now, we're all about AI. So we're becoming really an AI first company. From the very start, remember I told you that it has to work out of the box. We've always had that philosophy. And so when our users of our software that resell to small business put that business in, we start to collect all the data, and we've got the end-to-end workflows, and we use AI to do that. I would have spent that money differently. probably even more on building software, and I would accelerate even faster. I've been accelerating into AI for 2 years. I mean, when GTP chat first came out in the first public version 3.5 was November 30th of 2022, and I wrote a note to our board on December 10th, and our folks, and said we're doing this, and I would go even faster. Yeah,
I mean, what you say there reminds me of, so I spent 13 years at Sprint, big corporate America, and it was kind of interesting to think back now, but there'd be new technologies that would come out. There'd be new players that come out. We'd be like, all right, let's just watch that for the next 6 months. Let's see if it looks like it's going to turn into something. If it does, then we'll put some time, some investment into that. Man,
yeah.
you can't do that now. You can't even sit
No,
back for a week.
no,
And
everything's changing really fast. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, you're exactly. I mean, you know exactly where I'm going, right? I think there's no question that AI is. I mean, it already is a big thing. It already is a big deal. So there's no guessing. Now it's just like, okay, now it's leadership. Now it's strategy. Now it's how do you
And
leverage it?
that's what I was gonna say is like when you know something's moving that fast, you can't bet on winners and losers yet, because like the models are changing every day, and it turns out that those models, some are good at certain things, some are good at others. Like you got a model like Claude that's great at writing code, it doesn't make very nice pictures, it tries to do them in vectors. So like it's like so what's important is that at this time is not to make those bets, and to be model agnostic. So like, in our software, we're model agnostic so that we don't, launder the AI risk to our customers. We're going to make sure that we can always use the latest model, and so our customers can actually choose those. We give them great defaults, but they can choose those. And some are like, so it's based on price, latency, speed. So like certain tasks, you need a different model. If you're doing voice transcription, you need a really fast model. It doesn't need to be all that smart to transcribe. But if you're doing a different thing like data analytics, you might need a reasoning model. It takes a lot more and takes some time. And so it's a different modality. And so it's really, really important to be able to set the right strategy to be able to take advantage of the opportunity. And that's what we're trying to do.
So, Brendan, don't give away any insider baseball here, but is there different pieces of functionality that your platform has? So you use specific tools that you know is better for that, or do you have some secret sauce or leveraging an engine that kind of dynamically can choose which platform and even which version
No,
of a
yeah,
given
well,
platform?
so seriously, so we're maybe, and we have two things, two sort of key philosophies in our models. One is model agnostic. So we give them a good default, but they can change. So if you go to our voice agent today, you can actually choose, do you want to use DeepGram? Do you want to use, OpenAI? Do you want to use Gemini? You can choose those models. We recommend one because it's good at voice. And then if you go to a different thing like our web chat, you can use, a different model. We recommend one, and our prompt transparency is there. So the things that we do in our platform: manage web chats, book appointments, capture leads, respond to reviews, summarize emails, create email sequences, create social content, manage voice calls, do sales prep, is all of those things now that you can do. We've chosen what we think are the best models. But what happens is like, oh, look, you got, O3 just came out, which is better than O4, or, than 4.0 rather. And it's like suddenly, but that one takes a long time because it does reasoning. But man, is that ever good for preparing a sales proposal?
Yeah, it's
Versus,
powerful.
and so you're like, you need to be able to make, to be like, we're not going to try to pass that off as some kind of, we're not going to make the models. My philosophy on who's going to win AI is there's four big winners. There's the chip makers. We're not going to be that. That's a power law distribution. It takes $10 billion to build a fab, takes 5 years. Or the model delivers. I used to say makers, but there's a backlog on those chips. You need billions of dollars worth of capital to be able to deliver these models. So that's Amazon, Google, OpenAI, Grok, whoever has the winners there. So that's all power law distribution. But then there's the people who have the data systems of record and the system of engagement, who have the people in there doing the work, and that's us. So we're we have all this data that we collect in an automated way about a small business. We know everything about it, where it's listed, where the phone numbers are wrong, what credit cards they take, all about their photos, their reviews, their social posts, their SEO data, like where do they show up, what are they, how are they, what are their ICPs, all of that data. And then we have the workflows, everything from market, sell, bill, fulfill, deliver. So the jobs we choose, because you're asking long-winded answer to get around to what jobs are we choosing to do in our platform. We're choosing jobs that either the AI can do better than a person, or there's not a person doing it already, and so it's good enough. And so that one is called sort of the quality threshold. So it's like a really high quality threshold. It's like, if I made a picture in 2021, it was no good, but by 2024, it didn't matter which model I used; they're all great. And then the autonomy threshold is you don't need a human. So if I'm not going to answer my phone 24 hours a day anyway, I might as well have the AI do it. And so, it passes those. And so that's how we choose the jobs that we do. So, and then it has to be in our platform. We got to have the data. The AI has to effectively be able to answer the question. It's got to have a high value or be difficult or tedious to do for the small business. And then it's got to have some kind of frequency. So it's got to pass like the toothbrush test. So, if I'm going to reconcile a bank book, that takes once every 30 days. But leads, multiple times a day, capturing those leads. It's a wonderful job to take on. And that builds trust then with the users. And that's why we're model agnostic. And that's why we have prompt transparency, because we're trying to build trust with our users. Because that's how users understand trust. They look at the work difference and they say, oh, this is comparable to what I could do, and it's consistently accurate. And oh, I can see why. Like in our chat, you could actually see why the AI answered the question. It says, here's where it got the information, and here's the analysis of why it answered it. That's really good. They call that a transparent logic trace. And then that is always the way that a human can be in the loop. So if you don't really trust it yet, you don't have to do that. But after 1,000 reviews have been answered, you're like, I don't want to do that anymore. I trust it. And we keep the data private and those kind of things. So that those are the ways I think it's important to pick the jobs to be done in a platform.
Yeah, Brendan, you and your team have put out some great content. So anybody's not following you guys or the company page, checking this stuff out, you're doing a bang up job. So want to definitely call that out and let you know that I appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mark.
One last question before we let you go, and that is, and I've seen some of you guys' comments on this, and I agree. But what do you say to that that manager, that person, that individual that's out there, and they're like, oh my God, my job's going to be taken away. I'm going to be unemployed in 12 months. How do you really see AI evolving?
Well, it's not AI that's going to take their job. It's a person using AI that's going to take their job.
Amen.
I think that everyone, I've told all the people at Vendasta, I said, we're embracing AI, and we have a bunch of people that are making content, writing blog posts and making websites and social posts, and those jobs they're changing. It's not Vendasta that's changing those jobs are changing, and it's like you have the opportunity to actually manage. So that the thing is the whole idea of work has changed. So we're moving completely from, as a user, that you use software to do a job, and that software enables you to do that, and people manage people. The new way is like the AI does the job. Software enables that AI employee, and you manage the AI. So you manage the AI, you set the strategy, you look at the KPIs, but you don't actually do the job. You transcend that. And so but like I said, I told our people here, there's a job here for everybody if they embrace AI and learn how to use it. There's a bright future and a better future, like a better paying job.
Awesome. Brendan, I appreciate your time. It was good to catch up with you. Keep on keeping on, man. You guys are doing some great things there.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of the Partnernomics Show. Don't forget to subscribe to get the newest episodes at thepartnernomicsshow.com.